The Sony Fx3 and the Sony Fx30 have freaking updates, huge updates. Let's get it. What's up, y'all? Tight Shirt Ted Warfield back for another video. Hope you're having a great freaking day so far. Remember to be thankful for your life today because you absolutely did not have to wake up this morning, but you did, and now you are here. Listen, before we get into the meat and potatoes, I got to tell you, I do not script videos, so if I mess up, I just mess up. I know y'all love cooking me in the comments every time I make a little mistake, and that's all good, but secondly, I am so freaking hyped about this update. I made a video about the Fx30 and Fx3 about 2 or 3 months ago, and it was a rant video, right? Basically cooking Sony for what I feel like they were doing, and that's not supporting the Fx3 and the Fx30 by bringing them up to quote-unquote cinema quality standard, right, when it comes to features. And the whole time I'm cooking them, they already got a firmware ready to go, and in fact, because of that video, they even said, hey Terry, you want to be one of the first ones with access to this firmware update? And I was like, absolutely, send it over. So yes, we're talking about the new firmware update for the Fx30, updating to version 2, and the Fx3 updating to version 3. Now, these are huge updates. I'm going to fire off this list of stuff. I did take some notes, because so you know, if I get something wrong, y'all will have my head on a spit. So what do these updates add, right? First of all, it enables DCI 4K, which I've been waiting on for so long. Secondly, it enables true 24p support. So we still have 23.98, but now we actually have 24 frames a second. And with that, it enables shutter speeds of a 24th, a 48th, and a 96th of a second, which is huge, right? The next thing is anamorphic D-squeeze display in camera. That's also something that I've been telling Sony that I wanted for so long, and now we have it. There is some caveats, so I will get to those in a second. The next thing for the Fx3, it now gets breathing compensation, thankfully. Unfortunately, it doesn't give us very shutter or like animal AF and video as far as tracking goes, but I'm okay with that, right? The next thing is it allows you to set S&Q to pretty much any function button or any button on the camera, just a one press and go right into S&Q, which is huge. Now you can change in the settings your file format name to cam ID and real number, and for people that work on film sets, this is absolutely positively a game-changing thing, because now you can set the camera file names to be whatever you need them to be, so when you pass them off to your editor could just say, hey, this was X, Y, and Z camera, X, Y, and Z real, super clutch. And lastly, it updates both cameras to support the new Creators app, so you can do pretty much everything from the cloud. And once these are updated to be compatible with the new Creators app, you can issue firmware updates from your phone to the camera, which is huge. So the next thing is, how do you update these cameras? The good thing is all you need to do is go to Sony's website to download the firmware update and place it on an SD card. In the root of it, do not put it in a freaking folder, and do not change the file name or it will not freaking work. You need a charged battery. Then once you have the firmware update on the SD card, you go to the setup tab, which is at the bottom, the yellow one. Then you go to setup option, which is number 12, and then you're going to go all the way down to where you see version. Once you in there, then it'll tell you what firmware version you are running, and then all you got to do is press freaking software update and let the Fx3 and Fx30 do their thing, finish cooking the chicken in the oven, and boom, the software is up to date. And now it's time to dive in to some of these features, because there are some things that y'all really need to know when it comes to this firmware update. And again, big shout out to Sony for coming through and updating these cameras, and hopefully this is an indication for people who have other cameras like the Alpha 1 or the A7S III that we will get firmware updates for these cameras. And lastly, I hope we do get shutter angle in the next firmware update, because unfortunately it was not added in this firmware update, and I'm very sad about that, but I'm super hyped about the stuff that we did get. So the first thing I want to talk about is anamorphic display in the camera, right? So now the Fx30 and the Fx3 both have an option to de-squeeze 1.33 times anamorphic and also 2 times anamorphic in camera, but there's some caveats, right? First of all, this is only a display, so this does not cook in your final ratio into your footage, which means once you pull your footage off the camera, you still need to de-squeeze it in post. So this is only a display. The second thing is you have to be in log for you to be able to access de-squeeze. The third thing is once you enable de-squeeze, you lose all of your stabilization, including gyro data. This is useful if you do not have a monitor. If you don't have like a small HD or whatever other monitor you run in, a Ninja V, whatever the case may be, those have pretty much every D-Squeeze option in them. And if you don't have a monitor, yes, this works. So you can see a preview of what it looks like in camera. But second of all, if you have a monitor, I would say it's probably better to just use your monitor to D-Squeeze, because there are more options in the monitor. There's pretty much every freaking D-Squeeze option with a real monitor versus just 1.33 or 2x on here. Plus, you can still use stabilization with an anamorphic lens attached if you just use a monitor to give you your D-Squeeze preview versus letting the camera do it. Now, Sony did send these lenses over with the Sony cameras, and if y'all don't know, Sony does make native E-mount anamorphic lenses, so definitely check those out. This is the 24mm f2.8, this is a 1.33x, and this is a 35mm t2.9 with a 1.6x squeeze. Now, this lens does not give 2x. If you wanted to go 2x, they also sell this adapter that you put on the front element, and these combined, because this is a 1.25x, you can multiply those numbers is how you get the final squeeze factor. This will give you a 2x, and then obviously you can preview that in camera. And yes, in anamorphic you can still shoot 120 frames per second. Aside from that, it's great to have it in camera. You just need to know of the limitations. Now let's talk about 24p and DCI 4K. This camera actually shoots real 24p, right? But the only way you can access it is if you go into the menu and you switch to DCI 4K. Now once you switch to DCI 4K, the camera will do a soft reboot, so just be prepared. Anytime you switch to DCI, you're gonna have to wait about 10 seconds for the camera to boot back up, and then you get access to the typical frame rates, plus you see 24.00. Now this also gives you access to shutter speeds of 1/24th, a 48th, and a 96th of a second, which you don't need to be in DCI to use those. But for people who want that true 180-degree shutter, I wish we could have had shutter angle, but that's a whole different topic for a whole nother video. Thank you anyway, Sony, for these updates, but we need that shutter angle. Now you can get it because those shutter speeds are there for you. The next thing, once you enable DCI 4K, you lose the ability to shoot at 120 frames per second. So for me, I'm a 120 FPS snob. I like everything to be in super slow motion. I know some of y'all hate that, but I love it. But unfortunately, you do lose 120 FPS when you switch to DCI 4K. Also, you can still use anamorphic D-Squeeze display in camera with DCI 4K turned on, so clutch. Now again, with the Fx3, you do get breathing compensation added to the mix, which is so welcome. But unfortunately, we don't get everything like we got with the Fx30. So the Fx30 has variable shutter already. The Fx3 unfortunately does not support that. And also there's still no live streaming ability from the Fx3 built in, and still no animal bird IF tracker, like I said before, in video. And again, more than likely a hardware limitation. The next welcome change is for S and Q. So you could assign certain aspects of S and Q, slow and quick, to any function button, but now you can actually assign it to toggle switch. So now you could go from regular movie to S and Q with the tap of one button, very similar to how a switch would do like on the Sony a7 IV, but now you can assign that to any button. And then lastly, I know there's gonna be some of y'all like, oh, well, I know we got 24 people. What about us that like to do the cinema snob thing and go 48p, right? Well, you could do that, right? You can do it through the slow and quick menu, and if you go in there to frame rate, now there's an option. As long as the camera is in DCI 4K already, it'll present the option to go up to 48 frames per second for you, which is good for, again, some of you cinema snobs. One other thing, it updates, like we talked about, both cameras to support Sony's new Creator Cloud app, where you can upload your pictures, manage them off-site, videos, all that stuff. Creator Cloud is dope, so both cameras will support that after the update. So overall, a huge freaking update for both cameras. Did we get everything that we wanted? No. And I think as consumers, we do need to step back and realize that we can't just have every single thing that we want in a camera, because otherwise there would only be one camera with everything that we wanted stuffed into it. But I think we need to step back again and give Sony kudos. And I gotta apologize to Sony. Right, I'm willing to say when I was wrong. I cooked them. I told them that they, were abandoning their customers and not updating the cameras, and here we are with two of Sony's baby cinema cameras that have updates to bring us closer to where these cameras should have always been, and I'm very happy. And I hope that this is an indication that Sony is taking firmware updates serious, and that other cameras may get updates, and that these cameras will continue to get updates, and that some of the faith is restored in Sony when it comes to firmware updates. And this is a great start to get back on track and do the right thing, and it will make customers happy across the board. I'm pumped that we got these things, and I think you guys and gals should be too. So anyways, I'm out of here. Hope this video was helpful to you. Till next time, piece of chicken, Reese Tyson, Terry Warfield. I'm out. Peace.